In the bustling streets of 1920s Tokyo, where time and trains never stopped, one soul stood still, day after day, year after year, waiting. This is the story of a dog, but not just any dog. His name was Hachiko, a dog, but not just a dog. A symbol of loyalty so pure, so absolute, that his story would echo far beyond the corners of Japan. A tale carved not in stone, but in memory. This is the tragic and timeless story of the dog who waited. Born on November 10th, 1923, in the snowy highlands of Udate, Akita Prefecture, a quiet puppy opened his eyes to a cold world. He was one of 8 in the litter. Among them, he stood out not for his size, but for the peculiar marking on his chest resembling the Japanese kanji for the number 8, ba. Thus, he was named Hachi, a sign of luck. Life on the farm was peaceful, but destiny had other plans. A letter arrived, bearing the seal of the Imperial University in Tokyo. Professor Hidesaburo Ueno, a man of intellect and compassion, was seeking a purebred Akita. The journey to Tokyo was long. Cold iron trains, unfamiliar voices, and strange smells overwhelmed the young pup. But waiting at the other end of the line was the man who would change his life. Professor, a bachelor in his 50s, he lived in a modest house in the Shibuya district. He had no wife, no children. But from the moment Hachiko entered his home, something shifted. Mornings began with tea and gentle conversation. Afternoons ended with paws on pavement and wagging tails. Hachiko would walk Ueno to Shibuya Station each morning, his tail swaying in rhythm with the professor's polished shoes. As the train departed, Hachiko would watch, and every afternoon, before the clock struck 3, he'd return to the station, waiting patiently. Soon, station vendors and commuters began recognizing the pair. The dog, loyal; the professor, kind. Together, they were a fixture of Shibuya. May 21st, 1925. It was like any other morning, but fate had its own schedule. Professor Ueno collapsed during a lecture. A sudden cerebral hemorrhage. No warning, no goodbye. Back at the station, Hachiko waited. The train arrived. The crowd stepped off, but his master never came. And still, he waited, until the sun dipped behind the rooftops and the station grew quiet. The next day, Hachiko returned, and the next. Every day, at precisely the same time, Hachiko came to Shibuya Station, alone, hopeful. Weeks turned into months. Months blurred into years. He braved rainstorms, snowfall, blistering heat. His once bright coat began to dull. His gait slowed, but his resolve never wavered. First, he was seen as a nuisance. Children teased him. Vendors scolded him. Some tried to chase him away with sticks, but the station guards noticed something different. This was not a stray. This was a soul in mourning. One day, a worker offered him scraps. Another placed a towel beneath him when it rained. The public perception began to shift. Soon, Hachiko was no longer unwanted. He was watched, admired, protected. In 1932, a former student of Professor Ueno, moved by the dog's loyalty, wrote an article in the Asahi Shimbun. Overnight, Hachiko became a symbol, a hero. Children learned about him in school. People traveled miles just to see him. They'd bring treats, gifts, flowers. The Japanese began calling him Churkin Hachiko, the faithful dog. In April 1934, a bronze statue of Hachiko was unveiled. At Shibuya Station, the real Hachiko attended the ceremony, wagging his tail among the gathered crowd, a sculpture to honor a dog. During World War II, the original statue was taken down, melted for weapons, in 1948. It was rebuilt by the son of the original sculptor. It still stands today. March 8, 1935. A cold morning, a station attendant found Hachiko motionless in the alley behind the ticket gate. He had died during the night. An autopsy showed he had late-stage cancer, a filarial infection. In his stomach, skewers remnants of food given by kind strangers. The news of his death struck the nation. Crowds wept. Letters poured in. They cremated Hachiko. His ashes were placed beside Professor Ueno's at Aoyama Cemetery. Even in death, they would be reunited. His pelt was preserved and displayed at the National Museum of Nature and Science. In Tokyo, a tangible memory of intangible devotion. Books were written, statues erected in America. A Hollywood film starring Richard Gere retold the story to the world. Helen Keller, upon hearing of Hachiko, requested an Akita to take back to the United States. It was the first of the breed ever brought across the Pacific. Why do we remember Hachiko? Because, in his silence, he taught us that loyalty is not bound by language, that love does not understand absence, and that sometimes the purest hearts walk on four legs. So the next time you step off a train at Shibuya Station, look for the statue. Look for the bronze eyes that waited. He waited for a man who would never return, yet he never gave up. Because for Hachiko, it was never about the return, it was about the hope. A bronze dog, a true friend, and a reminder that devotion never dies. In the shadowy mists of England's eastern coast, where moors stretch endlessly and churches crumble under centuries of silence, a legend lingers, a creature with burning eyes, towering, silent, and deadly. This is the curse of the black shuck, demon dog of folklore, or a real beast that haunted England for centuries. Tonight, we uncover the chilling truth behind one of England's most terrifying legends. The first sightings, the name Black Shuck, is thought to originate from the Old English word skucka, meaning demon or fiend. First reports date back to the 12th century along the coasts of East Anglia, Norfolk, Suffolk, and Essex. Eyewitnesses claimed to see a monstrous black dog the size of a calf, with eyes like red saucers, sometimes glowing, sometimes flaming. It never barked. It never growled. But it brought death. One of the most famous sightings took place in 1577 in the town of Bungay. The Bungay incident on August 4, 1577. During a violent thunderstorm, parishioners huddled in St. Mary's Church in Bungay. Suddenly, lightning struck. The doors blew open, and in the chaos, a monstrous black hound charged down the nave. 2 worshippers fell dead instantly. Others were badly burned. The creature vanished as quickly as it came. The very same day, just miles away in Blithburg at Holy Trinity Church. Another strike, another appearance. 3 people were killed. The black shuck left claw marks on the church door, scars still visible today. Supernatural or symbolic? Was it a demon or nature's fury misinterpreted by terrified villagers? Historians suggest the black shuck sightings may have been rooted in pagan traditions. Dogs were seen as omens, sometimes guardians, sometimes reapers. But folklore doesn't lie idle. Over centuries, the black shuck was seen during times of war, plague, and famine, where there was despair. The shuck appeared, accounts across centuries. 17th century pamphlets told tales of travelers stalked by an enormous black dog, only to vanish upon entering holy ground. In the 1800s. A man in Cromer swore he was followed for miles by a shadow with red eyes. When he turned nothing in 1901, a farmer discovered giant paw prints circling his barn after a sheep massacre. No other tracks were found. Some say if the black shuck appears to you, you or someone close will die within a year. The skeleton in the ruins. In 2014, archaeologists uncovered a massive dog skeleton near Liston Abbey, not far from Blythburgh. The bones dated back over 400 years. The dog would have stood over 7 feet tall on hind legs. Coincidence or proof? While some dismissed it as a hunting dog, others saw validation of the shuck's legend. Black shuck in pop culture. The tale has inspired everything from Iron Maiden lyrics to horror novels. In Neil Gaiman's The Hound of the Baskervilles, and even J.K. Rowling's Grimm in Harry Potter. Echoes of the shuck remain. Even now, ghost tours in Norfolk feature its legend. Locals swear by its truth. Psychology of the curse. Why do we believe in demon dogs? Some say the shuck is collective trauma, centuries of war, plague, and loss, given a form we could see and fear. Others insist it's more, a guardian, a protector of sacred grounds, a spirit of judgment. The line between monster and messenger is thin. Modern encounters reports still come in 1972. A motorist claimed to have hit a black dog near a Suffolk graveyard. He found nothing, but his engine failed instantly. In 1999, hikers reported red eyes watching them on the edge of Rendlesham Forest. Even in 2020, security cameras picked up unusual shapes near old churches. Some still believe the shuck walks among us. Conclusion: whether a demon, a ghost, or a metaphor, the black shuck endures. Maybe it's a warning, maybe it's justice, but the people of East Anglia know one thing: when the storm rolls in and the mist creeps low, you'd best not walk alone, because the shuck sees you, and once seen, it never forgets. In the land of golden sand and towering pyramids, there lived a creature both feared and adored. Not a king, not a god, but a cat. Once, in ancient Egypt, cats were worshipped as divine beings. Their eyes were said to hold the mysteries of the universe. Their presence could bless or curse a household. But what began as devotion would take a dark turn. This is the true story of how cats were once honored as gods, and then slaughtered by the millions. Our journey begins over 4,000 years ago. In the old kingdom of Egypt, the Nile flowed through the heart of the land, giving life to crops, people, and stories. Among those stories were whispers of powerful creatures who could see in the dark, hunt in silence, and protect homes from unseen evils. Cats were not just pets. They were guardians of the harvest, slayers of snakes, and mystical companions. To kill a cat, even by accident, was punishable by death. They weren't just animals. They were living symbols of divine energy. Central to this reverence was Bastet, the lioness-turned-cat goddess. Originally depicted as a fierce, lion-headed warrior, Bastet eventually took the softer form of a domestic cat. She represented fertility, music, joy, and the protection of women and children. Her worship exploded in popularity during the New Kingdom era. Every year, tens of thousands of pilgrims would travel to Bubastis, her sacred city, for grand festivals filled with music, dancing, and offerings. Some say over 700,000 people attended these festivals. Statues of cats, often made of bronze or stone, were placed in homes as a sign of protection. Temples dedicated to Bastet were filled with mummified cats' offerings to the divine. Cats became an everyday part of Egyptian life. They were fed at the table, adorned with jewelry, painted into tombs, named in hieroglyphs. Families mourned them like they would humans. Some even shaved their eyebrows in grief. They weren't just present in life, they were guardians in death. Cats were buried with their owners or in their own sacred tombs. And then came the shift by the late period of Egyptian history, around 664 BC. The worship of Bastet cats reached an extreme. The demand for cat mummies skyrocketed. People believed offering a mummified cat to Bastet would grant divine favor. Tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of cats were bred, raised, and killed solely to be mummified. An industry of death built on devotion. Archaeologists discovered entire cemeteries filled with cat mummies. One tomb at Saqqara held over 80,000 mummified cats. Cats were raised on temple grounds. Priests and workers specialized in the ritual killing, embalming, and selling of feline remains. Some of these mummies were real cats, others just bundles of bones and feathers wrapped in linen mass produced to meet demand. It wasn't about the animal anymore. It was about the symbol. As Greek and Roman influences crept into Egypt, the religious significance of cats began to fade. Herodotus, the Greek historian, noted Egypt's obsession with cats but also their violent reverence. He recounted stories of riots erupting over feline deaths, but foreign rulers saw things differently. Cats became curiosities, not divinities, and as Egypt fell under Roman rule, temples were defunded, priests lost power, the old gods were forgotten. What was once sacred became superstition. Mummified cats were no longer holy. Many were ground up and sold as fertilizer. The vast cemeteries of cats were looted, desecrated. Statues were melted down. Temples collapsed into dust. The great Bastet festivals were no more. And cats, they returned to the shadows, stray, silent, watching. In the 19th and 20th centuries, archaeologists unearthed the truth, literally, at Bene Hassan, Saqqara, and Bubastis. They found the mummies, thousands of them. Entire crypts dedicated to cats. Museums today hold feline remains over 2,000 years old. In one case, researchers used CT scans to peer inside sealed mummies, finding kittens, birds, and sometimes nothing at all. The cult of cats had become a mass economy, but also a testament to how far humans will go to honor or exploit the divine. Today, the image of the Egyptian cat lives on. In fashion, in jewelry, in Halloween costumes, but also in deeper ways. The reverence for cats as independent mystical beings continues in homes around the world. They may no longer be gods, but perhaps they never stopped watching us as if they were. Egyptians believed the soul had to be judged before it could pass into the afterlife. If a cat's loyalty could speak for a soul, Many would have been saved. So next time you lock eyes with a cat, remember, in one of the greatest civilizations ever known, they were not pets, they were sacred, they were divine, they were loved, and lost, and still they remain. In the dead of winter, 1925, an invisible killer swept through the icy veins of Alaska. Children were dying, towns were isolated, and one desperate plan emerged. A dog sled relay across 674 miles of frozen hell. Most remember Balto, but history got it wrong. This is the untold story of the real hero of the Serum Run, Togo, a forgotten legend, a sled dog who defied death, blizzards, and betrayal. In January 1925, Nome faced a nightmare. A deadly diphtheria outbreak had begun. The local doctor, Curtis Welch, had exhausted all his antitoxin. Without immediate delivery of serum, the children of Nome would perish. Planes couldn't fly. Temperatures plunged to -50 degrees Fahrenheit. Ships were ice. Trains couldn't reach the coast. There was only one hope left: dog sleds. A relay was planned. Over 20 mushers, over 150 sled dogs, racing from Nenana to Nome. A brutal 674-mile mission. But the true test wouldn't lie in numbers. It would lie in endurance. And no one endured like Togo. Meet Togo. Togo was born a runt in 1913, small, sickly, and unwanted by his owner, Leonhard Sapala, a master musher and breeder. But Togo had fire. At 8 months, he leaped over his kennel fence, chased Sapala's team for miles, and refused to be left behind. He wasn't just fast, he was intelligent, strategic, born to lead. By 1925, Togo had already run more than 75,000 miles in his career. He was 12 years old, too old, they said. But Sapala knew better. Togo wasn't just ready, he was made for this mission. The race begins. The relay began on January 27, 1925. Togo and Sapala were tasked with the longest, most dangerous leg, 260 miles, across the most treacherous terrain. They left Nome with little rest. With each mile, the winds grew crueler. Visibility vanished. But Togo knew the way. He cut through blizzards like a ghost. Across Norton Sound, a frozen sea, he navigated thin ice and certain death. At one point, the ice cracked beneath them. Togo leaped ahead, pulling his team and musher to safety. He saved them all. Togo's supernatural feat. They ran 84 miles in a single day, more than most dogs would run in a week. Through the Topkok Mountains, Togo defied 80 miles per hour winds. He slept standing in his harness. He ran on bloody paws. This wasn't instinct, it was willpower. And he did it, not for fame, but for love, for Sapala, for the children, for the mission. The handoff. After 260 miles, Togo handed off the serum. His job was done. And yet, his journey back to Nome added even more miles. Nearly 400 miles total. The final leg, 55 miles, went to Musher Gunnar, Kazan, and Balto. Balto did what was asked, but Togo, he did the impossible. Publicity and miscredit. When the serum reached Nome, the world celebrated. Newspapers hailed Balto as the hero. Statues were raised. Films were made. Togo, he was forgotten. Even Sapala was outraged. Togo was the real hero, he said. Balto was a freight dog. nothing more. But history doesn't always reward the right name. The final years Togo retired quietly. He lived out his final years in Maine. He fathered generations of sled dogs. His bloodline powered champions. He died in 1929 at age 16. His body was mounted, preserved in the Museum of New York, but his soul, it stayed on the ice, legacy rewritten today. Togo's story is finally being told. Books, memorials, the 2019 film starring Willem Dafoe brought his name back to life in the annals of dog sledding and in the hearts of Alaskans. Togo now holds the place he earned. Final reflection. One dog ran nearly 400 miles through frozen death. He did not seek glory. He asked for no reward, but he saved a generation in the story of the 1925 Serum Run. Let us not forget the true hero, the runt, the rebel, the legend. His name was Togo.